Disco Elysium: The Final Cut. Paying under $4 for what is arguably the greatest piece of interactive writing ever made feels completely legal. Your character wakes up with a hangover so apocalyptic he forgot his own name, the concept of money, and the fact that he's a detective on a murder case. The sheer lunacy of arguing with your own brain chemistry to solve a crime is incredible. Sure, the pacing can feel slow if you hate reading, but the branching consequences are absurd. You can literally die from turning on a ceiling fan too aggressively. Snagging a 90% discount on a masterpiece that permanently ruins standard RPG dialogue for you is an absolute no-brainer. Grim Dawn. ARPG fans have been quietly obsessing over this dark fantasy meat grinder for years, and seeing it drop to $2 and change is genuinely shocking. Forget picking a single class. Combining two distinct skill trees creates ridiculous synergies, like a heavily armored warlord who throws poisonous lightning. The engine definitely shows its age with some stiff animations, but the loot loop is dangerously addictive. The sheer volume of theory crafting available here usually demands a full-price commitment. Dropping a couple of dollars for hundreds of hours of satisfying monster-shattering progression makes this a mandatory card edition. Esoteric Ebb. CRPG fans starving for more Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition mechanics need to grab this immediately. Playing as a burned-out cleric alongside a goblin sidekick trying to uncover a political conspiracy brings a totally fresh vibe to the genre. Translating tabletop rules into a video game can sometimes create a clunky interface, but the chaotic dice rolls and desperate skill checks create incredible unscripted disasters. Getting a 20% discount on a game that captures the exact feeling of a tabletop campaign going totally off the rails makes it a seriously smart buy for a $20 bill. No rest for the wicked. Moon Studios entirely abandoned their platforming roots to build a brutally punishing action RPG, and the result is gorgeous. The weight of every sword swing and dodge roll requires severe precision. Button mashing will just get your spine snapped by a basic infected peasant. It is still in early access, meaning optimization can sometimes get a bit rough depending on your hardware, but paying under $30 for an experience combining Souls-like tension with an incredibly dense handcrafted world guarantees you're getting in on the ground floor of something massive. Bastion. Supergiant Games never misses, and their debut project still looks and sounds better than most modern releases. Having a dynamic narrator comment on every single action you take, even destroying random barrels for no reason, completely changes the atmosphere. The weapon combinations allow for some seriously chaotic combat styles. It is a shorter experience compared to massive open worlds, but the pacing is flawless. For $3, skipping your morning coffee buys you an emotional powerhouse with an unforgettable soundtrack that will live in your head for years. Desperados III. Real-time tactics games can be incredibly intimidating, but executing a perfectly synchronized ambush on a gang of Wild West outlaws provides a massive rush. Setting up a trap using mind control, a fake doctor, and a massive bear trap just never gets old. The trial and error nature means you'll be mashing the quick load button constantly, which can frustrate impatient players, but getting this level of polished, brain-burning puzzle combat for $10 is ridiculous. It turns you into an evil genius, carefully dismantling entire enemy camps, one unfortunate guard at a time. Cleared Hot. Nostalgia for Desert Strike is real, but picking up enemy vehicles with a giant helicopter magnet and dropping them onto other enemies is universal joy. The physics-based destruction adds a layer of hilarious chaos to tactical rescue missions. Controlling a heavily armed chopper takes a minute to get used to, and the learning curve might result in a few accidental crashes into radio towers. But spending $12 for tight twin-stick action combined with absurd physics comedy is a massive win for your Steam library. Wasteland 3.
Managing a squad of cynical desert rangers trying to survive a frozen apocalypse forces you into wildly uncomfortable moral choices. Solving a hostage situation by accidentally blowing up the hostages and then having the game adapt the story around your incompetence is brilliant design. Co-op multiplayer can occasionally desync, so definitely save often if you play with a friend. Seeing this 80-hour masterclass in reactive storytelling drop under $8 feels like a total glitch in the Matrix. You could replay this 3 times and still miss entire factions. Lost and Found Co. Anyone obsessed with finding tiny details in massive crowds will instantly lose track of time here. Taking a duck goddess and turning her into a magical detective creates a weirdly soothing gameplay loop. Every single corner of these hand-drawn maps is packed with inside jokes and animated chaos. Staring at the screen looking for a specific umbrella might give you slight eye strain after a few hours, but getting a 20% discount on a game that basically weaponizes cozy dopamine hits is a fantastic way to stretch your wallet. Whisper of the House. Trying to solve a mystery while stuck in a deeply unsettling environment changes how you interact with everything. The tension comes from what you can't see just outside your flashlight beam. Point-and-click logic sometimes requires combining completely random items, which can halt your progress if you miss a tiny visual cue. Yet finding genuine horror from a top-down perspective is incredibly rare. Spending $12 for an atmospheric thriller that forces you to constantly check your corners guarantees a highly memorable sweatsuiting weekend. Eriksholm, the Stolen Dream. Heavily narrative-focused stealth requires brilliant level design, and this Nordic-inspired city absolutely delivers. Managing a crew of outcasts where a single mistake sets off alarms across the entire district keeps the tension incredibly high. Sometimes character pathing can get a bit confused around tight corners, leading to some frantic escapes. A 30% discount on a game blending high-stakes thievery with gorgeous 1920s aesthetics makes it an easy recommendation. The satisfaction of slipping through an impossible security grid entirely unseen is worth the price of admission alone. TUNIC. Playing an adorable fox exploring a colorful world is a total trap. Underneath the cute aesthetic hides a brutally difficult combat system and a puzzle design that genuinely breaks the fourth wall. You collect pages of an old-school instruction booklet written in a totally alien language, deciphering mechanics simply by looking at the scribbled pictures. The difficulty spikes on later bosses are absolutely savage. Half off for a game that literally makes you grab a physical notebook to decipher hidden codes is a massive steal. Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous. The sheer scale of turning a ragtag group of adventurers into literal demigods is staggering. You can lead a holy crusade as a golden dragon, or decide to become a walking swarm of locusts that devours the entire map. The kingdom management systems can feel incredibly overwhelming, forcing you to micromanage troops when you just want to kill demons. But acquiring a 150-hour epic campaign with insane mythic path reactivity for $5 is probably the highest hours per dollar value of this entire sale. Dead Estate. Fast, gory, and weirdly charming, this twin-stick roguelike demands lightning-fast reflexes. Trapped in a mansion filled with grotesque monsters, the weapon variety keeps every single run feeling completely psychotic. You might start with a basic pistol and end up firing explosive frogs. The visual clutter gets so intense during boss fights that tracking your own character becomes a major challenge. Throwing $5 at a frantic, highly replayable shooter packed with distinct playable weirdos is a zero-risk investment for pure arcade chaos. Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector. Capturing the sheer brutality of tabletop Warhammer is hard, but watching a squad of heavy dreadnoughts rip through a Tyranid swarm feels incredible. The momentum system rewards aggressive plays, forcing you to push forward instead of turtling behind cover. The campaign interface definitely feels a little bare bones between the actual firefights. However, securing this much tactical depth for $20 is a massive win for strategy fans. Watching an entire alien flank evaporate under precision plasma fire is deeply satisfying. Timelie. Treating time like a video file you can scrub backward and forward entirely rewrites how you approach stealth. If a guard catches you, just drag the timeline back 3 seconds and take a different hallway. Coordinating movements with your psychic cat companion creates incredibly complex, synchronized escapes. The total lack of combat might deter anyone looking for action, but spending $9 for a mind-bending puzzle box that lets you literally edit your own mistakes turns you into a precognitive mastermind.
Cyberknight's Flashpoint. Managing a crew of underground mercenaries in a cyberpunk dystopia means constantly balancing stealth, hacking, and sudden outbursts of extreme violence. Planning a perfect heist only to have a single blown fuse alert a heavily armored security team forces you to adapt instantly. The sheer density of the UI can feel like learning to pilot a commercial jet. Getting a 40% cut on a deeply tactical RPG that lets you pull off elaborate corporate sabotage makes this a seriously sharp acquisition for your roster. Darksiders Genesis. Taking a third-person action franchise and successfully shrinking it down to an isometric perspective sounds like a terrible idea, but the execution is fantastic. Swapping between War's heavy sword strikes and Strife's dual pistol acrobatics keeps the combat flowing perfectly. The platforming sections are occasionally frustrating because judging jump distances from this camera angle is tricky, but dropping $4 and change for a beautifully animated, highly polished demon-slaying adventure with fantastic co-op is completely absurd value. Colony Ship, a post-Earth role-playing game. Generational spaceships usually mean advanced tech, but humanity has devolved into violent factions fighting over rusting life support systems. The social mechanics are wild, allowing you to completely talk your way through heavily guarded facilities without firing a single shot. The combat difficulty is utterly unforgiving, punishing bad positioning with immediate death. Snagging a hardcore, incredibly reactive sci-fi RPG for $16 gives you a wildly deep world where your choices genuinely alter the survival of the entire ship. The Thaumaturge. Exploring 1905 Warsaw while controlling ethereal demons to manipulate people's emotions is an insanely specific and brilliant concept. Using esoteric flaws to read minds and force political outcomes creates a wildly different type of detective game. The combat animations can feel a little stiff during massive brawls, taking away some of the impact, but securing a deeply unique historical mystery with a heavy emphasis on psychological manipulation for $12 guarantees an experience you simply cannot find anywhere else.